ways of working that we've all agreed as we've had these council meetings so far. So first of all, when you are not speaking, you need to be muted. So can everybody make sure that their microphone is muted, and you only unmute yourself if you are asked to speak. And after you are finished speaking, then you need to mute yourself again. That's the only way we can manage the meeting, because otherwise the feedback is so difficult that we can't all hear each other speak. When it comes to a point that we're dealing with questions, if you have a question, you will need to press the virtual hand on the screen. So if anybody has any problems about finding that, please can they just put something in the chat and let us know, or else we'll try and get somebody from Democratic Services to leave a message for them. If you raise your hand, I will be helping the Mayor by spotting people who've raised their hands, and I will call you when it's appropriate within the meeting to ask your question. And then once you have asked your question, you need to remember to put your hand down by clicking on the hand symbol again. Similarly, once we've dealt with questions, if you have a comment to make in the comment section, again, you'll need to raise the symbol of a hand, and then when I or the Mayor asks you to comment, you can make your comment, and then you'll need to go back on mute and to lower your hand again. If you need to leave the meeting at any stage, you have to let us know that you are leaving. So if you either put a comment in the chat, or if you raise your hand to say that you're going to be leaving, we can make a record of that, because we have to have an accurate record of who's present at any time. If you have connection difficulties during the meeting, but you can still see and hear what's going on, you will still be able to vote. If you lose connection and you do not hear the whole of the debate on a particular issue, then you cannot vote on that issue. We haven't got many things that we're going to be voting on tonight, but that is still the case. You have to have heard the whole of the debate in order to be able to vote. So the last point I'm going to make is that when we come to the votes, as I explained at the last meeting, because what we're doing is counting the number of hands that are raised, when you are asked to vote, you press the hand symbol to say that you are voting. I'm going to do it in a sort of a reverse order, because it makes it easier for it to be counted. So I will first ask if there are any abstentions. And if there are no abstentions, I will ask if there are any votes against, and we will count those. And then I will ask that everybody who wants to vote for the motion votes for the motion. So if you just make sure you listen carefully to hear what it is I'm asking you to vote on, and then we should be able to deal with it more efficiently that way. So what I will be doing is asking now if all the officers and guests who are present make sure they've got their cameras turned off, so that only the elected members are on screen. And then I'll just check with members of Democratic Services. Have we sorted the issues with Councillor Michelle Jones? I don't know.
I can't see that.
Anna,
I can't see that she's come back in. I'll email her now, and I'll try and phone her as well.
Okay. What I'm going to do is ask the Mayor to begin the meeting formally, because we have had a little bit of a period of time now, and hopefully we'll get Councillor Michelle Jones to join us as soon as we can. So can I hand over to you, Mr Mayor, to commence the meeting?
Thank you, Madam Officer. Croeso I Kavatha Plan. Good afternoon to you all. Welcome to the Untitled County Borough Full Council meeting on Wednesday, the 4th of November. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be broadcast via the authority's internet site. The images and sound recorded may also be used for training purposes within the authority. We'll go on to item number 1, apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Kevin Gibbs. I'm not sure if any other member present has any apologies to record on behalf of any other member. No, Mr Mayor, so just the apologies on behalf of Councillor Kevin Gibbs.
We go on to item 2, declarations of interest. Can I please remind members of section A and B, members are reminded that they must identify the team item number and subject matter, and that the interest relates to and signifies the nature of the personal interest. My glasses have gone steamed up away. Where members are withdrawn from the meeting as a consequence of the disclosure of prejudicial interest, they must notify the mayor when they leave. So, and then back to you, Caris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have Councillor Barry has indicated to speak.
Yeah, just for clarity, really, Monitor Officer, I've got I run a company that does school contracts. So item 8 is a school transport issue. It's only an information report. I know we're not voting or discussing it. So a declaration or no?
I think it's appropriate that you have declared what your interest is, but as nobody is voting on any issue in respect of that, you wouldn't need to leave whilst that is just read out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has anything to raise with regard to that?
Councillor David Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm seeking clarification as a councillor who runs a business in relation to the notice of motion in agenda item 6. As my business has been the grateful recipient of an element of coronavirus business support funding from the Welsh Government, expertly administered by this authority given the short timescales involved may had. Could the monitoring officer advise me as to whether I need to declare an interest in this notice of motion or not, please?
It's a difficult question because the way that the notice is going to be put, the resolution that's going to be suggested to the council is for specific action to be taken, and on that basis, Councillor Jones, I think you probably do need to declare an interest. What I didn't say at the outset is that if you do declare an interest in an item, then what you would need to do is just turn off your camera and your microphone so that you are not influencing any debate that takes place. So yes, having said that, I anticipate there are other people now who are going to be asking the same question. I will just remind you, this is why we ask you to deal with this before the meeting. Councillor Colbrand, are you going to say the same thing as Councillor Jones has just said?
Yes, I am. The same applies to me. Thanks, Monitoring Officer.
Thank you. If everybody is going to be asking the same thing, we are going to have to just record everybody's name. I think the difficulty is going to be Councillor Barry is going to say that he runs a business and he is presenting the notice of motion. Right. So we are likely to get ourselves into a difficulty unless somebody else is able to present the notice of motion. Councillor Barry, is there anybody else who can present it?
Well, we've got Geraint Thomas who's on there as well, but I believe Geraint's been a recipient of a grant as well.
Monitoring Officer, I'll take the notice of motion for Councillor Barry.
Very grateful, Councillor Mitten. How many people are, right, what I'll need, so I need everybody who has raised their hand and I have spoken to them to then lower their hand, because then we will be able to count off the other people. So I then have Councillor Brent Carter. Are you saying the same thing? Are you on mute, Councillor Carter?
Is that better?
I can't hear anything from Councillor Carter.
Hang on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. Sorry. With regards to this, then, and I'm looking after Geraint Thomas here. How does Geraint Thomas stand then, and with regards to this notice of motion, if his name is signed on it?
First of all, it's a matter of for each councillor to deal with whether they declare an interest or not. Secondly, as I've said already, it would be a lot better if people raised these issues before the meeting, because then we could have a proper plan as to how we're going to deal with it. And finally, I think that as the notice of motion is recorded and is validly in your agenda, there is no difficulty in somebody else presenting it on behalf of those who have proposed it, if that councillor, in this case Councillor Mitten, is prepared to move the motion that is before the council. Is anybody else indicating that they need to declare an interest? I can see Councillor David Hughes. Can you just say, are you going to be saying the same thing as Councillor Barry and Councillor Jones have said already?
Yeah, I work for a company that received a grant. Is that similar?
It's similar. I'm not sure that that would be quite the same prejudicial interest, because this is about controlling interest. So I'm going to say that I don't think that you do have the same interest. Councillor John Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Madam Officer. It's just on the information report 8, the school transport. I do schools as well for the local authority, so I just declare an interest in that, same as Andrew.
But you won't need to leave the meeting in the same way as said to Councillor Barry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if the monitor officer can see my hand raised. It's been raised for some time because I'm a guest at this meeting. But monitor officer, I'd like to declare personal and prejudicial interest in the notice of motion because I'm a committee member of an organisation that's received NDR funding through the business grants from the Welsh Government.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yes, I am able to see your hand. What I'm trying to do is work systematically through them as they appear on my screen. But thank you. So we've recorded yours. Councillor Jago. Councillor Jago, if you're speaking, you may be on mute. Councillor Jago, can you hear me? Okay, I can't see anybody. Right, the next person I can see is Councillor Salmon. Councillor Salmon, can you tell me what your declaration is?
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. As everyone else is saying, I sit on the board of a charity that's received money.
Right.
Does that?
Thank you. I think we're going to have to say that everybody is declaring an interest, and this is why we need to deal with these matters before we start meetings, because now we're going to end up in a real difficulty about whether we have a quorum to deal with this matter. Okay, so I have 2 other hands showing, now 3. Councillor Gareth Richards.
Again, I chair a charity that's received monies from Welsh Government, gratefully.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll accept your declaration. Is Councillor Cheryl Jago able to hear me?
Caris, she's put a note into chat saying her mic isn't working, but she's declared what interest she's got.
That's lovely.
Can you hear me?
I can now, Councillor Jago.
I'm on my phone now, so I can hear you now. But I don't need to declare any interest, thank you.
Thank you. So, can you put your hand down then for me, please? Thank you. Councillor Mitten, do you have your hand up now?
Yeah, Monitoring Officer, I just want to check in relation to Councillor Jago and Richards that the notice of motion is in relation to specific business grants, not any charity boards or anything like that. So I think there just needs to be some clarity there that the notice of motion is in relation to business grants. Just for their own peace of mind.
That's exactly right. And everybody who has said because of something which would not be in receipt of a business grant is not going to need to declare an interest. It is businesses. So,
thank you, Caris.
Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Caris. Just for clarity, I don't know the procedure. So if someone on a notice of motion goes off it, someone else can replace them. Is that correct?
The notice of motion is validly before this council, and somebody else can propose the motion to the council. Yes.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Just clarifies it for me.
Okay. So, Councillor Chris Davis, are you still indicating to speak?
I am monitoring officer, and my apologies for not bringing this to your attention in advance alongside other members, but just to seek clarification from you in terms of what you determine and what the council's determining as the business grants, because the non-domestic rates grants, as I understood it, was part of the package of business grants provided to the council to administer on behalf of the Welsh Government. So if it doesn't include the NDR, I'd welcome clarification on that. I'll obviously withdraw my interest because my interest is in relation to the non-domestic rates grant.
Everybody's read the papers. What is that? What is included in the notice of motion? I don't know whether Councillor Andrew Barry might be able to help us with that.
The non-domestic rates grant is within there and alludes to any future funding that may come, including non-domestic rates grants, along with rate relief, along with economic resilience fund. So it's any package of funding into the future we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right, so is everybody clear about that? I can see that Councillor Geraint Thomas has his hand up. Councillor Geraint Thomas?
Thank you, Madam Officer. Yeah, I better declare an interest because there could be funding coming my way into the future. So although it does relate to monies come in, not that we've had in the past. So, but I will declare my interest just in case.
Thank you. Councillor Clive Tivy.
Yes, I've got a business. I'm not sure if they'll give me anything, but I'd best declare an interest.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Darren Roberts.
Yeah, taking on board what Councillor Andrew Barry just said, then that would surely apply to charities as well, if it's to do with other funding streams as well.
Yeah,
there have been charities who've received funding as well. You're correct, Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's prudent if members declare an interest in that one as well. Then monitoring officer.
Yeah,
it's a matter for them, but if I was sitting on a charity, I'd certainly do so.
I tend to agree with that.
I think everybody pretty much has now. I think we had a moment there where some people said they weren't going any longer to declare their interest, but I think we will stand by what everybody said originally. Councillor Galsworthy.
Yeah, thank you, Monitor Officer. In interest, I will consider my interest for item 7. Yes. With Trialis Boys and Girls Club.
I'm sorry, Councillor Galsworthy. Can I just be clear? You're declaring an interest in which item?
Yeah, it's no, sorry.
In the
whatever the food. Yeah, it's
item 6, I think, monitoring officer.
Item 6, 7. Yes. Sorry.
Right. In the notice of motion. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor David Jones.
Yeah, I definitely want to declare interest because it is a charity that I manage.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lisa Mitten.
Monitoring officer, I just need to double check with the queries and questions that we've had now in relation to this declaration of interest. We could be here for a number of, another 10 minutes or so going through the declarations. I certainly can't take this notice of motion now because if it does include charities, I would need to declare an interest myself. So can I recommend that we withdraw this notice of motion subject to more information from legal and from you as our monitoring officer, and perhaps bring it to the next full council if that is just and we can do that.
We check with Democratic Services whether we actually have a quorum remaining to deal with this, and I suspect that we are going to struggle to proceed with it.
I agree.
Mr. Mayor, you have a suggestion there that the item be withdrawn. It was proposed by Councillor Barry and Councillor Geraint Thomas, both of whom have now declared an interest. Councillor Mitten will take the matter forward and is now not able to do so, and I suspect that you are really going to struggle to have a quorum. So, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that this item is withdrawn and is then brought back before the council once we're in a clearer position as to how we're going to be able to progress it. Are you content to go in that way?
I am, yeah. Are we going to vote on that? Or
No,
just...
I don't think we are, because if it's just withdrawn, we can just take it that it's been withdrawn.
Right, okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, then I will ask you, we've only just concluded item 2, the declarations of interest. And so if we can then move on, Mr. Mayor, and you can proceed to item 3.
Thank you, Monterosa. We move on to item 3, presentation from Ian Ritchie Architects on the Kavatha Plan 2020-2040. Mr. Ritchie, can I invite you to address the council, please? Is he there?
Mr. Ritchie, are you there or are you on mute potentially? Does anyone from Democratic Services know if Mr. Ritchie is present?
He is present, but we can't hear him.
He isn't on mute though.
No.
Yes, we can see him, but we can't hear him.
Can you hear me now?
Sorry,
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So
I had to come out and go back in because you couldn't hear me earlier either.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Councillor Jago. Can we put you on mute a moment? We're just trying to sort out what's happening with the presentation, but thank you for rejoining. Mr. Ritchie, are you able to hear us? I wonder if anybody in Democratic Services can let us know.
He's just stepped away from his computer, monitoring officer.
Thank you.
He was talking, but no one could hear him. I'm not sure if he could hear you because I think he was giving the presentation, but he's away from his desk at the moment.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if everybody would be prepared to just wait for a moment, and we'll see if Democratic Services staff can let us know whether Mr. Ritchie is able to join. Alan Owen, are you able to help us?
Yes, Martin Officer. If I can just make some phone calls just to find out what the source of the technical issues are, and get back to you if that's okay.
That would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
If I may be permitted to address the council, my name is Jonathan Shaw of Ian Ritchie Architects. Very sorry, my director Ian Ritchie's microphone doesn't seem to be working, but I will be making the presentation on his behalf. He's very apologises that he's unable to address you at the beginning.
Thank you, that's terribly helpful. Mr. Mayor, perhaps if you want to just hand over so that we can start the presentation.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Thank you. Please take the presentation and take the floor, as they say.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for giving this opportunity to address full council with the Kavatha Plan. I'm now just going to share my screen and make the presentation available to you. And if there's just be some sort of acknowledgement to ensure that this presentation is now visible on your screens.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And in which case we will begin. So the Kavatha Plan, as you will be aware from your previous motions in council, is looking at the wider Kavatha heritage area. And Ian Ritchie Architects, along with a wider team, were commissioned about just over a year ago now to put together this 20-year plan to look at how best to serve the wider Kavatha heritage area and the assets within it. The Kavatha Plan itself, of what has been developed over these past 12 months, will see the creation of what is a greater 100-hectare park. And within that, there are 4 key elements to the project. They include the castle, the Iron Way, the creative arts, and higher education. This plan itself then, as first noted, will be developed and looked at between 2020 to 2040, and it is one that very much all involved see as something that's a local project but of regional importance and national significance. The plan itself is designed to grow in parallel with effectively the lives of the youngest generations of Merthyr Tydfil as they grow into adults. And we see it's something that draws on the unrivaled social, political, and industrial history that Merthyr Tydfil has. The fact its position is a great southern gateway to the Brecon Beacons and its pivotal position in the wider Valleys Regional Park. This diagram on the left here shows quite clearly how Merthyr Tydfil actually becomes the centre of what is a combined Brecon Beacons National Park and a Valleys Regional Park. The Greater Kavatha Park will see to celebrate Merthyr Tydfil's unique history and heritage, celebrate and heal the natural environment, and create an engine of creativity that can be embraced by the whole community within Merthyr Tydfil. Over the past 12 months, we very much see this as a people-centred plan. There have been multiple public workshops, council and stakeholder engagements with various officers within council, multiple primary schools, secondary schools, youth groups, and it's been a very enjoyable opportunity to really explore and understand the focus and the insights of the people of Merthyr. And very much this continued at such a pace from last September until February, until unfortunately when the coronavirus pandemic hit. What this in-depth consultation brought about was effectively 3 strategic themes, and these were history and heritage, the natural environment, and contemporary creativity. What this plan then does, it brings these 3 strands together to create what is this, what we're calling a 21st century socioeconomic approach, which is very different to 21st century thinking in the fact that you look at how you amalgamate these 3 different strategic themes, which of course have been born directly from the residents and occupiers and wider valley of Merthyr Tydfil. The plan itself, being developed with over the next, considered to be developed over the next 20 years, is punctuated by a series of key major events. Those are actually in 2025, the 200th year anniversary of Kavatha Castle, 2031, which is the 200th year anniversary of Merthyr Rising, and finally the 2040, which is the 275 years since the first establishment of the Kavatha Ironworks. The project itself, being a youth-focused plan, looks at how within first phase focusing on primary age learners, then secondary age learners, college age, and young adult. It provides this framework for community involvement for its implementation to be co-designed in smaller projects, youth-focused projects, and different events and opportunities to be enveloped over those next 20 years. The plan itself prioritizes projects which we think are central to its ethos and integrity. That's the must-do projects, those which are strongly recommended for the plan to reach its full potential, the should do, and projects which are to enhance and optimize the plan that could do. This has resulted in over 70 different projects which have been identified for the plan. Now, not all these projects have to be initiated and developed, but there's a rich pickings there from which to develop this very creative plan over the next 20 years. What's central to this plan is, and the reason they've been chosen, is they're central to the whole ethos of the Kavatha Plan. The result of this extensive consultation, they look to reconnect the historic landscape of the ironworks and the park. They provide restored, new or renewed uses for the key historic assets. They built on the great collections and outreach and education programs that these historic assets currently offer, and they're adaptable and resilient in that they can be implemented as and when funding and opportunity becomes available. It's very much a phased approach, and the first decade starts to look at what are the important industrial heritage, the industrial and wider heritage assets first. They include the castle, the Pandy Farm and the furnaces, but also introduce 2 new items which we'll explore later, known as the Glassway and the Ironway. In the second decade, we start to explore more of the creative arts, the idea of focusing on what's called the Conference College and higher education, and finally seeing the culmination of what will be the 100-hectare park. And here is an example of a proposed timeline of that over those 20 years, with a focus in particular of the Kavatha furnaces first and the Kavatha Castle, with the other elements of the projects being developed once those 2 major items have been successfully regenerated. And on screen now is just a flavour of some of those particular projects that would happen within those first 10 years, focused around the castle, the Ironway and the 100-hectare park. And then secondly, to the last 10 years, with more of a focus on the tertiary education and the completion of that park. What we are going to show to you now are those 6 key projects which make the plan. They are the 100-hectare park, the Kavatha furnaces, Kavatha Castle, the Ironway, and elements of Pandy Farm. Firstly, the 100-hectare park seeks to develop and deliver what was one of the key elements of the Crucible report. That's how do you reconnect the historic landscape of the Kavatha Park and the Kavatha furnaces. And the development of this 100-hectare park does so in many sort of considered landscape and further inventive ways, which we will show in due course. Central to the development of this 100-hectare park are key landscape trails, those which will connect the centre of Merthyr Tydfil via the river route, via the furnaces and into the wider Kavatha Park, and also looking at how to create a series of landscape routes, bringing in Tafor and the Tafecum valleys, which really are the starting point for your journey out into the wider southern tip of the Brecon Beacons. An example of some of the elements within Kavatha Park itself, focusing on the castle and play. This is looking at the upgrade and redevelopment of the castle forecourt gardens to give it a true civic approach to that great building. A development of the display gardens, and a development of an adventure playground which delivers and provides a new and expanded offer within Kavatha Park. In addition, we also look at elements of sculpture, sports and events, looking at how outdoor sculpture could be used and with development of emerging young artists and designers and working with local school groups, how you could create sort of family-friendly elements of mini golf within the park, and actually creating a development of a natural amphitheatre which works on the Pandy Field to develop an outdoor space between 3,000 and 5,000 people. To the north, the park then is very much a focus on community and biodiversity, actually looking at turning over part of the land for the development of community vegetable gardens, looking at the development of biodiversity within the great meadows within the park, and probably later down the line, looking into the latter phase 3 of the reinstatement of Bryncanner and Pond, potentially as something as for the use of wild swimming. Of course, prioritising Merthyr Tydfil's heritage assets has been the key of this plan. The main focus then was looking at the Kavatha furnaces. The stabilisation of those furnaces is seen one of the highest priorities of the plan. They're a scheduled ancient monument, their scale and grandeur is impressive, and it's considered they must be preserved and interpreted, and their interpretation presented in a rather inventive way. Two of the images on the screen here show how that landscape could be reinterpreted as a great park, but also in the evening used as a backdrop for events, but also how you can tell the story of the industrial power through various light shows and interactive shows within that great landscape. The next major item, of course, is considering the development of Kavatha Castle. Now, we know there have been several options and approaches to how this castle could be transformed over time. The castle itself is very much seen the centrepiece of this history and heritage strand, and the plan envisages that Kavatha Castle becomes an international standard people's museum, which is actually true to Merthyr Tydfil, its people, its heritage, and has a capacity to receive large-scale exhibitions. The three approaches to the castle are three different options, different scale. Option 1 is quite small, moving up to a larger one of option 3. They all look at creating a 21st century museum with what's known as a co-creation centre, which is actually developing ideas in tandem with the local people in the wider regional area, and the ability to receive wider exhibition galleries. The main objectives, therefore, of the castle was to transform it as the centrepiece of the plan, create this museum of international quality, ensure the wider well-being and socio-economic objectives are embedded in the plan, developing, as we said, of this co-creation centre, and provide multiple income streams for Kavatha Castle. It would also be used to incubate some of the earlier strategies, some of the later strategies of the plan, using Kavatha Castle as this testbed. Consideration of Pandy Farm within this sees as potentially a viable space for creative and community uses, very much a place of work to offer genuine employment and workspace at the centre point of the Kavatha Plan. We then look at the idea of creating something new. One of the biggest challenges to the plan has been how you actually develop that connection between the furnaces and Kavatha Castle, which can be done in a landscape way. But actually, if you look at the image there to the bottom left, showing this original iron way, which is a vast timber and iron viaduct that used to cross the valleys, as shown there in the great drawing by Henry Williams, that can be reinterpreted as this great crossing across the valley. It's a contemporary interpretation of that monumental aqueduct, and therefore providing this very safe and enjoyable experience of which to cross the valley and to be proudly show the scale and grandeur that Merthyr Tydfil used to present. And here is just an example image of how that might happen as it passes over the lake and down towards the furnaces beyond. Another item that can be considered about creating something new, and very much something that's responding to the topography of the site and very much responding to that history and heritage of the great glass houses that used to exist on Kavatha Park itself, is the idea of what we call the glassway. The glassway itself would actually be celebrating its 19th century homes and offer a place of event, and could actually demonstrate the environmental impact of the change of the landscape over time. The Kavatha Plan very much celebrates what's known as the green to back and black again agenda in the and here's an overall image looking across Kavatha Park with potentially the glassway in the foreground, the ironway in the distance, moving over to the furnaces in the distance to create this one big compelling destination of the 100-hectare park. So finally, to surmise then, the Kavatha Plan is this seen as a 20-year strategic plan with all the different projects laid out within it. Its focus, of course, then being on higher education, the creative arts, the development of the ironway and the furnaces and the castle, which is all encompassed within this great 100-hectare park, and is something that, as all of those involved and the office involved very much feel is a local project of regional importance and national significance, which Merthyr Tydfil really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw. Thank you for a great presentation. Members, can I open the floor now to any questions? Councillor David Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for a very interesting presentation. On the last bullet point in 3.5 on page 7, it mentions to explore the establishment of links with major London-based charities and trust. Is there any development with this? Yeah, just leave it at that. Is there any development with this, please?
Mr. Shaw.
Okay, sorry there. That is very much in the agenda of the what will become the development group for this project going forward. I believe maybe the officers of either of Alan Owen might have a better idea of that than I would. Alan.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Jones. At this point, no, because obviously we're only at the juncture at the moment where we're actually scoping out the extent of projects that we want to take forward, and actually the prioritization. Once we approve this plan and we look at the next phase, we've established which charities that we want to approach, and as we go through this process, then before Christmas we'll be making those representations.
Thank you very much, both.
You have a question from Councillor Tony Rogers next, I think, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Tony Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question I'd like to ask is the slide went up, it went a little bit quick, and I read the report. It's regarding the Pandy Farm, because the Pandy Farm is privately owned. So can you elaborate a little bit more than that, because it's so historical, the Pandy Farm, and not to mention it again, part of my question, but my great uncle's in charge of all the horses. Old man Kendall, Mr. Kendall, kept that years ago. So could you develop a little bit on the Pandy Farm, please?
Yes, of course. So Pandy Farm was considered as part of this the wider Kavatha Plan because of its historical importance. Discussions were had with the current owner of Pandy Farm as to how this might be included and developed as part of the plan, and those discussions would continue as the plan would seek to be implemented, either with the current owner or potentially any future owner that may bring. Alan may have a further information to provide on that.
Yes, thanks very much. Yeah, as we've just heard, the discussions are ongoing with the current owner, which have been very productive and supportive.
Can I just
Yes, Councillor Rogers, no, go, you've muted yourself now. If you still had another question, can you unmute yourself again?
Lovely. Awesome. Go on. Thank you.
Was that all, Councillor Rogers?
I just I wanted to
Councillor Rogers, you're on mute.
Councillor Rogers, you're on mute. You would manage to unmute yourself just now, so you need to just click on that microphone symbol again. I think, Councillor Rogers, there you are. Right. Have you got another question, Councillor Rogers?
right start.
Now go ahead.
Right, thank you. Just a point on. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
Good, because you can normally hear me in Merthyr, but the point I'm making is regarding it may be a small fry to some people, but to a lot of people it's massively important, because the Nightingale, this is part of the question. The Nightingale was raised for the hospitals, for the general hospital, and the memories that are in people's minds of that is astronomical. So, you know, I'd love at some time to go around when the time comes to mention also the Nightingale used to be old on the Pandy Field.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers. Councillor Geraint Thomas, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Get it, Councillor Thomas?
No, I've got to come in for the comments, please, Caris.
All right.
Are there any other questions then? There are no more questions, Mr. Mayor.
We'll go on to comments. Any comments, please?
I think at this stage, Mr. Mayor, we just need to move on to item 4, because we then will need to deal with the report, and then members can have their comments at the end of that process. This was just for questions from Mr. Shaw, who stepped in to do a presentation for us. We'll then move on to the report, then members can make their comments at the end.
Okay. Well, Mr. Shaw, I'd like to thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to stay for the rest of the evening, or you want to leave us. It's entirely up to you, but thank you very much.
Thank you. We will stay for the outcome of this item, and then I will kindly say my leave.
Right, okay. We move on to item number 4, which is Councillor Geraint Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just working through the technology to get to the papers and turn the mic off at the same time. 1 second. Okay, the Kavatha Plan 2020-2040. On the 17th of July 2019, Cabinet approved the appointment of world-renowned architects, Ian Ritchie Architects, to create the master plan to help turn Merthyr Tydfil's Kavatha heritage area into an industrial heritage experience of international significance. The Project Commission required that the master plan will identify and define the brief for a number of large and smaller projects to be implemented over the next 1 to 20 years. The Kavatha Plan is a 20-year strategic document that will reveal the global importance of Merthyr Tydfil's industrial past and work in harmony with its natural environment to transform the Kavatha heritage area. The plan is the result of extensive consultation and involvement with the public and key stakeholders in Merthyr Tydfil held over a 5-month period. This led to the creation of 3 strategic themes, which have translated into more than 70 different projects. I think it's important that I say there, right, that the work that Jonathan in particular has done with his team to speak to all the people of Merthyr, and I mean all, because they've had a lot of involvement with younger people, and the younger people, the future of the town and for the region, have really, you know, set their sights on what they wanted. So, and I think the plan really is taking note of what the young people want for the future. So I think that's really important to say. 100-hectare park formed around the confluence of the Taff and Taff Echen rivers will expand on the existing 65 hectares to create a greater Kavatha Park, and encompassing some of the most important heritage assets, including Kavatha Castle, Kavatha Ironworks and Furnaces, Pontycafnau Bridge and Pandy Farm. The plan prioritises projects which are central to its ethos and integrity. Must do those that are strongly recommended for the plan to reach its full potential should do, and suggested projects to enhance and optimise the plan could do. This is a holistic, nuanced plan designed to deliver transformative change over a 20-year timescale. And I thank the Ian Ritchie Architects for all they've done in creating this piece of work. So the recommendations, I'll go through the recommendation 2.1, the Kavatha Plan 2020-2040 be approved. 2.2, the actions identified in section 5 of this report be approved. I so move, Chair.
I second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Members, any questions, please?
I think Councillor Clive Jones has indicated to speak.
Okay, Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. The first is in connection with paragraph 4.5 on page 8. And it states there, the Kavatha Plan is split into 4 phases. Phase 1 is the castle projects. Will the Kavatha Working Group or another group be organising plans to celebrate the 200-year anniversary of the building of Kavatha Castle in 2025?
Chair, Monitoring Officer, we're not dealing that in the report. I think we could deal with that outside of the meeting.
Yeah, if that's something that we're not able, unless I can see that Alan Owen and Chris Long have both indicated to speak. I don't know if one of you is able to assist with that. Alan?
Yeah, thanks, Monitoring Officer. The answer is yes, obviously, as was highlighted in the presentation. All the key events are part of the milestones of the plan.
Thank you, Alan. I'm assuming, Chris, that you were just going to say something similar. Is that right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. So, Councillor Clive Jones, did you have another question?
Yes, indeed, I have. Thank you. The next question is on page 9 in paragraph 6 under the heading Financial Implications. It states in the last sentence, and I quote, as projects develop, further reports will be presented to committee. I presume that should read council. And it's outlining any future financial implications. Will the further reports be presented to council, possibly every quarter or perhaps less often?
If I can take them on, Officer.
Yes.
We're happy to discuss that with members and any representative body or committee that we want to set up around this.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Mayor, no, there are no other questions.
Thank you. Members, any comments? Councillor Dan Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure all members will agree that this plan is really, really exciting. The prospects and the potential here is massive for the county borough. It's over a 20-year period. I just wish it was over a lesser period. And that's not saying that we should do it. I know that Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's going to take time, and it's got to be delivered correctly. But the reason why I'm saying it's a shame it couldn't be done sooner is because a lot of us are pushing on now. In another 20 years, we're not going to be here to see the end of it. So, credit where it's due. It's a fantastic plan. It was a fantastic presentation, and the slides were really, really invigorating. So, congratulations, everyone.
I think the leader was next, Mr. Mayor.
Leader.
Okay, thank you. I was fortunate enough today on our first fine day for some time to be up in Kavatha, speaking with some of the media agencies with Geraint and looking across that valley. To say it's exciting is an understatement. We will educate the world in our unique story. We'll also educate the people on our key place in history, both politically and in the result of the Industrial Revolution. There's great opportunities for regeneration for the town, great opportunities for jobs, great opportunities for our next generation. I echo the views. It seems like a long time, but everything seems to go very quickly in these sort of projects. It is a pity, and unfortunately, maybe some of us won't see the end of it. But I'm really filled with excitement to see the way they put it together and structured it. It is the jewel of the valleys, our town. You can see it now on paper, how it's structured, and the gateway to the Brecon Beacons. Over 1 million visitors last year, and but for the COVID, I think we've had much more this year. I'm delighted with the presentation. I think it's the second time I've seen it now. I'd like to thank the team and also look forward to it coming together in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Clive Jones is indicated next.
Thank you. Yes, this plan, I agree with Councillor Darren Roberts and Councillor O'Neill. This is really an exciting venture into the next 20 years. I hope to be here myself in 20 years to see the fruition of this. I live on the edge of this. I look forward to it. I am sure, Mr. Mayor, that this is going to change the face of Merthyr Tydfil, and the potential for the number of tourists and visitors to Merthyr Tydfil, frankly, the mind boggles as to what will happen. And I look forward to lots of the ideas in here coming about. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Geraint-Thomas has indicated that he would close the debate, so I think we need to move to Councillor Tony Rogers next.
Councillor Rogers.
There you go.
Can I say that this is so important as well, because most of our heritage are going out to Merthyr Tydfil. We've looked after St Fagans and other areas, which was a shame. I know a fellow member of mine, we stuck at it for the triangle in Penderbach. We lost that. Ready car cottages. There's so many things gone. I can mention them all to you. But now we want to retain the heritage of Merthyr Tydfil, because Kavatha Park is part of the county borough of Merthyr Tydfil. Let's retain our heritage. Well done, Geraint. Well done, Alan. Keep it up, whatever the circumstances, keep at it, because one day it will come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So then, Mr. Mayor, I think it's Councillor Geraint-Thomas.
Yeah, Councillor Thomas.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I echo what everybody said there today. It is a fantastic piece of work, and I think it's a gift that we can leave our children, our children's children, and the gift we're going to leave them is our heritage and our past in a proper format. And it's about time we've done it, Tony, isn't it? It's about time we did it for our children. Yes, 20 years is a long time, but if money allows, perhaps it could be done a lot quicker. You know, post-COVID, we know there's going to be money thrown into schemes like this, right, for employment, because people are going to need employment. So that's all I want to thank the Ian Ritchie team for all they've done for us, right? It's, you know, it is a great piece of work. But I'd also like to thank Alan, Chris and Zoe, because they've really been at the coalface, you know, really been puddling the mountain iron along, right, over a long period of time, and it's really come to fruition. So I'd just like to, you know, give the team a real big thank you from all the council. Well done, all.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas.
That's closed debate, so if you want to proceed to your vote.
Well, we'll take it to the vote now, tomorrow's officer. I don't know if Mr. Shaw is still with us, or he has left. But,
yes, so Mr. Mayor, we need now to move to the vote. And what we'll need to do is I will be asking everybody to deal with it in that reverse order that I've already indicated. Before we get to that, I can see Councillor Tony Rogers. Yeah, you just need to put your hand down for now. Thank you, Councillor Rogers. So we need to deal firstly with anybody who is seeking to abstain. Before we go to that, Councillor Rogers, do you intend to have your hand up? Because if you put your hand down now, and then we'll start the vote. Unless you want, there, lovely. Right, so I'm now going to ask any member who wishes to abstain, could you please vote now? Thank you for that. Any member who wishes to vote against the recommendations, could you please vote now? Thank you. And then any member wishing to vote for the recommendations, please vote now. I think that that's complete. Can somebody from Democratic Services just confirm to me that that's complete?
We've just got one person who hasn't voted. I think, oh, no. Yeah, just one person who hasn't voted.
Who is that?
I'm just checking quickly.
Montrenoff said that could be Councillor Skinner. I've just had a message to say that she's not feeling well and she's had to leave the meeting.
Right, in that case then we are complete on that issue and it is carried unanimously, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Could we lower your hands, please? We'll go on now to item number 5, minutes of the previous meeting, which is from items 5A to 5N. Can we please have somebody move on, please?
Mr Mayor, I move the accuracy of those minutes.
Thank you, Leader. Can we have a seconder, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I second those.
Right. That's it, guys. Can we vote on it now?
So again, we'll do this in reverse order, just to be clear, because it's easier to count this way. So is there any member who wishes to abstain on that issue? Thank you. Is there any member voting against on that issue? Thank you. And then any member voting in favour, can you please vote now? And that is complete and that is carried, Mr Mayor. So item 6 has been withdrawn. So can I ask you to move on to item 7?
Thank you, members. Before we start, could we please lower our hands, please? And we'll move on to item number 7, which is the Gully Sucker business case. And it's over to Councillor David Hughes. Present this.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Summary of the report is found in 1.1 to 1.4. Merthyr Tydfil County Borough Council's Highway Service manage the gully cleansing service within the county borough. There are currently between 10,500 and 12,000 gullies within Merthyr Tydfil and require routine maintenance to ensure that the drainage system functions effectively. Other items that require regular cleansing are cattle grids, beanie blocks and acro drainage systems. The number of gullies increased every year due to new housing developments being built and adopted. The gully cleansing service is currently provided by Caerphilly Borough Council at the cost of approximately 58k per year. On the 7th of October, the council approved the recommendation to progress option 3 of the business case to provide an in-house gully service. The report sets out the cost of doing so and associated anticipated timescales for introducing the in-house service. We come to the recommendations, and that the proposal to set up an in-house gully sucker service based on information presented at paragraph 6.1 be approved. I therefore moved.
I second, Mr Mayor.
Questions?
I think you have a question from Councillor Clive Jones, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Clive Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is in relation to waste disposal in paragraph 4 on page 71. It states in the last sentence, and I quote, "The cost of waste disposal specified in paragraph 6.2, which in fact should read 6.1, is based on disposal at Bryn Peaker, which is in Rhondda Current Taff. I note the cost of disposal is reduced by over 28,000 from the last report, from 108,950 to 80,881, which is welcome. With ongoing discussions with other local waste companies and the possibility of creating reed beds within our own county borough, can you confirm that there is further scope to reduce the Bryn Peaker quote of 80,881 to perhaps a much lower cost?
Yeah, do you want me to come in on that, Councillor Jones?
Anyone? Yes, please.
We are presently looking at all sort of companies that can take our waste. £108 a tonne is reduced because our waste at the moment has got a contract with Bryn Peaker, so we've managed to reduce it to 108. Obviously, if we serve notice with Caerphilly, we have a potential to utilise their reed beds, and hopefully we can reduce the waste cost there. But we can't ask Caerphilly until obviously we serve notice for them to remove the gully service at present to fetch it back in-house. Yeah.
So just to continue the question, if, for example, we were able to have our own reed beds within the county borough, would the cost then of disposal come right down?
Caerphilly spent, I believe, £600,000 a year on developing their own reed bed system. It is quite a task to manage the service. There is at least 2 guys got to have certain qualifications. They got to be tested, so to ensure that the waste that's going in there is inert. So there would be a cost. Me and Carwyn have spoken. There are sort of we are looking at Penywern Ponds at the moment with a new road going in the A465. So we're looking at the moment with Penywern Ponds, but obviously that will come with a cost of developing that site.
Thank you.
Councillor Gareth Lewis, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question relates to the timescales regarding the change from the current system to the in-house system. From what I understand, the notice will be given to Caerphilly Council on Friday. They require 6 months. So can the local authority guarantee that there'll be a seamless transition and the in-house gully service will be available from May 2021?
I don't think the machine will be a problem at the moment. By going to contract hire, we can fetch the machine in at quite short notice. But obviously the budget has got to be there for the machine and to take on 2 extra staff and train them for that time. But as long as the money's there, I don't see that being a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Julian Amos, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Amos.
Councillor Amos, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Yes,
all
we
right.
can.
Yep.
No,
just pick up on something that you mentioned about putting some waste into Penywern Ponds. Presumably you'll be consulting with the Anglers Association up there because it's quite a big organisation, and I know, I believe they use both ponds. I might be wrong, but is the top pond anyway affected, or the bottom pond there? But whichever one you're going to put it in, I know that the Angling Association use both.
Yeah, I can see Cadwyn's hand has come up here. As I say, it's only early conversations we've had at the moment. So I'm sure Cadwyn will be able to give you a bit more information on that. Are you there?
Yeah. Yeah, when we say Penwyn ponds, we're referring to the new attenuation ponds that are going to be constructed from the dualling scheme. So the existing ponds won't be affected at all.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anybody else indicating to ask questions, so you could move on to comments.
Members, can we have any comments, please? Councillor David Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe we've finally got the best. We've come to the best outcome for both the department and the residents of Merthyr Tydfil. A comparatively quick procurement of equipment and training, which will lead to at least part of this winter, could lead to part of this winter being fully covered by a gully sucker, which would be available instantly for emergencies and also have a potential for income generation. So I welcome this. Thank you.
Councillor Gareth Lewis.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Moderator Officer. Extremely pleased that in-house gully second service will be introduced across the county borough, and the gullies will now be cleaned more frequently. It will complement the local authority's extensive flood defence schemes that are being introduced as a result of Storm Dennis, and provide much needed reassurance to those we represent. Climate change is a reality, and this will only benefit the local authority as our 19th century drainage systems continue to compete against what is very much a 21st century problem. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Kevin O'Neill.
Thank you, Moderator, Mr. Mayor. Extremely important to the communities affected by the floods. The gully sucker has been a key element of business that has caused some discussion. Considerable work has gone into this from both our engineering department, our highways department, and our fleet manager in looking to find the best possible solution. There's never been in doubt that the gullies issues has been an issue for some time and has been something that many local members have had concerns about. I myself have had 2 meetings this week on the matters with engineers, with Natural Resources Wales, and also communicating to groups in that area who are concerned about the response to this matter. I feel we have got a good solution, and I'm grateful for the work done by all elected members, and in particular to our portfolio lead, Councillor Hughes, to Transport Manager Darren Chaff, and to Fleet Transport Manager. I hope that we have enough in place to protect our communities in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You have Councillor Geraint Thomas, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Thomas.
Mr. Mayor, I agree with what all the fellow members have said tonight on this matter. Agree with the leader. Councillor Hughes has led this case very strongly, and thanks to the officers and neighbourhood services for doing this. And I agree with Gareth, you know, we can do all we can. We can have all the machines in the world, all the gully suckers, and we can have all those pots cleaned out. But the amount of water that came in February, if that comes on a regular basis, we know our infrastructure can't cope with it. And I think going forward, that's something we've got to look at into the next decade. Yeah.
And then, Mr. Mayor, you have Councillor Tony Rogers indicated.
Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I originally raised it about 3 years ago, and it's taken this path thanks to what the leader, Councillor Kevin O'Neill, said to Darren and Hughes and Councillor Hughes and Carwyn and people like that. But the thing we must remember as well, it's wonderful for people of peace of mind originally from coming down from Caraca, what I mean, going to the Harvard cottages, Harvard estate. But the most important thing to remember is that I've been watching this weather since 2001. I keep a diary in it, everything. I can tell you the stories of it. But it's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. And we learn to live with it. But with this, we've got a chance to try and keep our gullies clean. Then hopefully there's no overflows to other places. That's the secret of it. Well done. Thank you.
And Mr Mayor, I have nobody else indicating to speak.
Thank you, councillors. We now put it to the vote, please.
So again, councillors, we're going to need to deal with this in reverse order to assist with the counting. So if everybody can start by putting their hands down. Right, so can I ask if anybody wishes to abstain, can they please show now? Thank you. Can I ask if anybody wishes to vote against the motion, please show now. Thank you. Can I ask if you wish to vote for the motion, can you please show now? And that's carried unanimously, Mr Mayor. So I think you're now moving forward to your information reports.
Yeah, thank you, councillors. We go on to item 8 and 9, which are information reports. So I'll move on to item 10, which is any urgent business or correspondence. There is no urgent business. Item 11, to receive communication received by His Worship the Mayor. There are no communications. So the last thing, that was the last thing on the item. So thank you very much. Thank you, members. Meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all soon. Take care.
Stay
Thank you,
safe.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Mr.